We're continuing now in Book 2, Chapter 5, verse 26. Again, any man who conducts himself in the right course of action will never fail in his attempts at any time. Some among the best of men have been reduced to misery by their poverty and helplessness. Yet by the exertion of their manhood they have again risen to the eminence of Indra. By learning the scriptures well from boyhood, by keeping company with the good, by possession of good qualities, and by diligent application, a man is sure to gain his object. It has been seen, known, heard, and experienced that acts are rewarded with success. They are dull-headed who think of obtaining it through fate or luck. If there were no folly of idleness in this world, what man would fail either to be rich or learned? It is because of idleness that this earth is filled to its utmost limit of the sea with indigent and beastly men. Now, why is there so much emphasis on acting? Now, that's because this is a universe of action. Dream creatures in this universe, you and I, were not created to sit about idly. The divine karmic traces at the basis of our existence are action-based. So it is literally against divine karmic traces to not engage in action. When we engage in action while still trapped in our individual karmic traces, it provides an opportunity to exercise those individual karmic traces, and that can create the possibility of balancing some of those individual karmic traces. So action is absolutely necessary. Verse 31, after passing his childhood and getting rid of its false and idle playfulness, and when he has attained the age of youthful vigor, let a man apply himself diligently to the company of wise men and to the cultivation of his understanding by a knowledge of scriptures and their means, and by scanning well his own faults and qualities. This is exactly what we mean. The only way to reach liberation, moksha, is through action. Action in the right direction, which means action that balances karmic traces. Karmic traces are never balanced by inaction, only by action. Even if the action appears to be inaction, if the action is dharana, the thinking of a mantra, it looks like the person is not acting. But we know that the thinking of the mantra is a form of action. Valmiki said, after Sage Vasishta had said all this, the day passed away, and after taking leave of the assembly, the sages went to bathe. With the rising beams of the sun dispelling the gloom of night, they joined again. Everything we do on the Sahasra Sirsha Brahma, the emergence event program, is based in action, isn't it? This meeting is an action. We are taking ourselves into the company of wise men and cultivating our understanding of the knowledge of scriptures and their meaning. And when we sit to meditate, we're scanning our own faults and qualities. That is, we're becoming aware of our karmic traces during the process of the meditation. Chapter 6. Fate is the result of former efforts. Vasishta resumed, saying, fate is nothing but the result of our actions in former existences. Therefore, it is possible to leave it at a distance and extricate oneself by keeping good company and studying moral scriptures. This idea of leave it at a distance and extricating oneself literally means balancing the karmic trace, doesn't it? And the process is studying moral scriptures, which is exactly what we're doing today. Whatever one attempts to do, he readily meets with its reward. This is the effect of effort. Fate is nothing but the same thing. Men laboring hard are heard to exclaim, "Oh, how painful it is." Men suffering under fate cry out, "Oh, hard is fate." Thus fate, being nothing but a name for our past actions, it is as easily overcome by present acts as a boy is subdued by his adult youth. So here we have an excellent definition for fate. Fate is nothing but a name for past actions. So when someone is doing nothing, subjecting himself to his fate, he's not going to ever get out of his trap of karmic traces. As some bad conduct of yesterday is conducted by proper behavior of the present day, so is past fate removed by present acts, the balancing of karmic traces. Carnal-minded libertines who make no effort but depend upon the favor of fortune are perverted in their nature and marked for misery. Thus, if acts of courage are capable of averting one's misfortune, then it must be acknowledged that such courage which destroys the other is the mightier of the two. Just like two fruit growing on the same branch, one empty within and the other full of juice, so does courage render the fruit of fate empty. You know, there's a common practice that is given to individuals following a certain guru, in which one sits to meditate, thinks the mantra, and then when one experiences a period of no thoughts, the Guru tells the student, stop thinking the mantra. Just be in that blissful state of no thought. That is the instruction, literally. Can we see what's wrong with that? What is wrong with that instruction? This that we're reading right now tells us that is a wrong instruction. The process of thinking the mantra dharana is the process of transcending, taking the frequency of the mantra, which has the ability to balance all karmic traces that it can come into contact with. And when we reach a state of no thought, do we stop thinking the mantra? No. We never stop thinking the mantra, even in a state of no thought. We continue to think the mantra, we continue to act, we continue to point our ship of intention in the direction of deeper and deeper levels of the mind. Because if we do, we're sure to come upon another thought. That's the practice of meditation. Verse 9, seeing the decay of the best things in the world, we must own the predominant power of the cause of this decay. Like two rams, our fate and efforts are fighting one another. Victory is always on the side of the stronger. In the case of a royal elephant taking up a beggar boy to be made a ruler, its cause is to be attributed more to the vote of countrymen and citizens than to chance. As a man takes his food and grinds it under his teeth, so is one, depending on fate, crushed by the stronger party relying on his efforts. Thus, more active masters employ inferior servants like clods of earth in any work the masters like. Silly and impotent men, seeing the strong thrive by their efforts, whether apparent or unseen, are apt to attribute it to their good luck. The strong efforts of men truly constitute the fortune that governs them, and these two are viewed alike by the wise. In the case of a beggar boy who is installed into the position of ruling and protecting the people of a kingdom, it is the unanimous concurrence of the law and the ministers and of the elephant and of the citizen that is to be taken as the chief cause. Should it be only the royal elephant who elects the beggar boy, then in that case, it would be attributed to the boy's good fortune only. But present acts destroy those of the past life, and those of the past life can destroy the effect of present acts. But the exertions of a man who are undoubtedly successful, of these two powers, that of the present is unmanifestly superior to the past. Hence, it is as possible for the present to overcome the past, just like it is for an adult to become a boy. As a hail shower lays waste the cultivation of a whole year, so also does predominant fate sometimes overpower the attempts of this life. However, it does not behoove us to be sorry at the loss of our long-earned treasure. For what does it serve to have sorrow for something that is beyond our control? If I have sorrow for what I am powerless to prevent, then I may as well weep all the days of my life, because death will not spare me. All our acts are subject to their proper time and place, and to their modes of their operation and combination according to the course of nature. That is why the more diligent are the most successful. Therefore, in order to cross the ocean of this world, we ought to rely upon our efforts and the clarity of our understanding from the help of scriptures and association with the wise. Actions of the past and present life are the two fruit trees growing in the garden of humanity. Whichever is cultivated the best thrives and bears fruit. He who is unable to overcome his fate, false fate, by his best efforts, is no better than an ignorant beast that has no power over its pain or pleasure. But he who thinks of going to heaven or hell by the will of the Maker is also a slave to destiny and is no better than a beast. The man of a noble mind is employed in acts of goodness, breaks off from the errors of the world like a lion from its cage. Let's go back to verse 27. That's an interesting verse. He who thinks of going to heaven or hell by the will of the Maker is also a slave to destiny and no better than a beast. A couple of important points here. One is no better than a beast. What does that mean? Well, any animal other than the human being has no ability to connect with the silent witness, to become the silent witness. Only the human being. That's what makes us human. And the action that it takes to connect with the silent witness, while it appears to be something of no action at all, just sitting with your eyes closed, you are taking an action, aren't you? You're directing your attention to identify the silence, and then further directing your intention, taking that very, very subtle action to become the silent witness. You're not just living your life depending upon divine will of the Creator to take you to enlightenment. That is a fool's errand. That takes you nowhere. Verse 29. Those who vainly imagine themselves to be led about by some supernatural power and so slight their necessary duties are to be shunned at a distance as the mean and base. There are thousands of acts that are attended with gain or loss to their doers, but it is the duty of man to do what is right, whether it be pleasant or painful. He who does not transgress the bounds of law and does not forsake his duties is attended by every blessing, abundant as the pearls in the sea. The wise describe courage as devoted diligence in acts leading to one's object. Being guided by the scriptures leads to his success. An act accompanied by exertion accomplishes one's object. And the company of the wise and the study of good books serve to raise a man by brightening his understanding. The wise know infinite happiness or a tranquil spirit is the supreme good. And those good works are fit for study, which lead to that state. The acts of our former lives constitute what we call our fate, daimon, or destiny, and they return to us from the region of the gods for our good in both worlds. We blame a fate that is the creation of the fancy of the ignorant, who by their adoration of such passivity meet their own destruction. One benefits himself always by his activity in both worlds, as the good acts of today gives a grace to those of yesterday. Therefore, whoever applies himself with diligence to his acts reaps their fruit like that of an Amalaki at his palm, which, though it is within his grasp, yet it could not be obtained without the cost of some labor. Only the ignorant depart from the beaten path and fall into the error of fatalism. Therefore, give up that false faith in an unreal fate, which is a mere creation of the imagination and devoid of any cause or effect. Apply your manly exertions, the fruit of following the scriptures and observing good customs and local usages is long known to be wholesome, exciting the heart and the exertion of the limbs to action. This is what is called manly activity. All wise men, after discussion of the subject of fate and acts, have applied themselves to action by utter rejection of fatality, and have accomplished their ends by attendance on the good and the wise. Knowing the efficacy of activity, every one should work on personal effort and attain to his highest perfection by attending to good scriptures and the wise counsels of learned men, knowing that the bondage of our births is full of pain. Let people listen to the wise and strive to exercise their efforts to obtain the good and sweet blessings of tranquility. Chapter 7. On the necessity of activity, Shishta speaking. Having obtained a body free from disease and a mind free from trouble, One should try to know the knowable to prevent further births. Well, this is an excellent statement. What it tells us, first of all, is this process of attaining moksha, enlightenment, is a process of action, and action is based first on our physical body, and we need a healthy physical body, a body free from disease, and a mind free from trouble. This is why, for example, the traditions in India for enlightenment will include Ayurveda, Panchakarma, meditation, and so on. In order to establish that body free from disease and mind free from trouble. This is why in our communities we bring this into existence through our techniques of yogasana, Surya Namaskar, Satchu Kaya Kalpa. Because that is how we get to this ability to sit quietly and take our attention deep within the mind, finding that silent witness, and free from distraction, we can then become the silent witness. That is the action that leads to the prevention of further births, moksha. Now we have a comment that many great masters have disease problems. Well, yes, of course. But they are great masters, aren't they? They have already accomplished their moksha. Now they're continuing with these disease problems to balance the remainder of their karma. Whenever we're balancing karma, it's common to have these physical expressions of disease, isn't it? You don't feel too good. We have flu-like symptoms. We have a rash. We have a sore throat. If you've gone through intense karmic balancing in the early days of the PM City program, and you know exactly what I mean. So this is normal, but we have to reach a state of peace and relative freedom from disease temporarily in order to have the opportunity to connect with the silent witness. Because what breaks our connection? The arising of karmic traces. When karmic traces arise to be balanced, that causes disease. Quite often physical disease or mental disorders. Sadness, anger, agitation, and so forth. So it's important on the path to take ourselves into this state of freedom of disease. The question, what's the level of consciousness of our community to prevent disease? Well, if you want to prevent disease, then you have to be at level of consciousness 900. Because at level of consciousness 900, you have balanced the karmic traces that are keeping you confined to this universe. Individual karmic traces that are arising in this universe. The divine karmic traces that arise in this universe are like the final karmic traces of this universe. But the divine karmic traces are of the perfection of the human physiology, freedom from disease. So we would need to be at level 900. That's why we have an Ayurvedic medical center in every community. Because there will be plenty of people in the community who are not at level of consciousness 900. So there will always be some physical problems. And these wonderful enlightened people who have reached moksha, level 1, 2, or 3. But when one reaches moksha level 4, truly at level 4, level of consciousness 900, then all physical body disease is impossible. So this kind of gives you an idea of where we're headed and an idea of these physical masters that have disease problems. And it's very humbling to realize that these great physical masters, these great masters who have had problems with their physiologies, who have had disease, they are still exhibiting the fact that they haven't yet achieved level of consciousness 900, which is our objective. But we throw out this objective as if it's, oh yes, okay, we're going to reach level of consciousness 900. What that literally means is reaching a level of consciousness higher than most of the great masters that we've ever read about or met or known. So don't take this as some trivial task. You know, we have this survey to measure your level of consciousness. And it's actually a little humorous to see how some people will mark everything so that they get level of consciousness 900 on the survey. And obviously, they're not at level of consciousness 900. So they're gaming the system. The ego is taken over, hasn't it? You have to approach that survey with humility and honesty, if you want it to work properly and give you a true reading. All right, let's continue with verse 3. But whoever is adverse to diligence and relies on his luck is an enemy of his own soul and sacrifices all his virtues, riches, and hopes. The exercise of our faculties of sense and mind, as well as of the members of the body, are the different modes of our exertions that lead us to success. Our perceptions are the cause of our mental activity, and this triggers the body to action, whereby we obtain the fruits of our desire. Whatever rule exists in the scriptures, shastras, it is addressed to our acts and never points us to fate. Even children are well aware of this. It was by the exercise of their efforts that the Brihaspati became the Lord of Gods, and Shuka obtained the position of the teacher of the demons. There have been many weak, poor, and miserable men who have, by means of their manly exertions, become equal to Indra himself. So also, there have been many great men on earth who, after enjoyment of a great many extraordinary things and luxuries here, have become guests in hell for lack of exercising their manly virtues. In this manner, all beings have evaded the effects of their various states of want and opulence by means of their own efforts. There are threefold benefits derived from the study of books, from the lectures of a teacher, and from one's own industry, all of which attend our efforts and not destiny. This is the long and short of all the scriptures, shastras, that diligence preserves our minds from all evils by employing them to whatever is good and right, to apply with diligence to whatever is excellent, not low or mean and not liable to loss or decay, is the lesson of parents and teachers to their sons and pupils. I get the immediate fruit of my labor in proportion to my exertion. Therefore, I say that I enjoy the fruit of my labor and not of my fortune. Activity gives us success, and this is what elevates the intelligent. But men of little understanding in their miserable state rely only on luck. In the levels of consciousness, there's one level of consciousness, I think it's about maybe 125. It is characterized by apathy. Very low level of consciousness. Apathy is the state in which one is just miserable, relying only on their luck. We have visible evidence of the efficacy of activity every day in the examples of men traveling in distant countries for the sake of gain. He who eats becomes satisfied, and who does not starves. So he who walks is said to proceed, and not one who rests. In like manner, whoever speaks is called a speaker, and not a silent man. Thus action makes the man. Wise men escape from great difficulties by means of their efforts, but not so the mistaken fatalist by his fruitless inertia. Whoever acts in any manner gets his reward accordingly, but the inactive man has nothing to expect anywhere. By well-directed industry, a man reaps the best reward. As he meets with its reverse by his misapplied labor. Think upon this, O Ram, and do as you like. The reward of industry, which a man meets with sooner or later at any time or place, is said to be by the wise to be his fortune. No one can see his fortune, nor has anybody ever seen it, nor is there any such a thing to be found in this world. It is only the merit of our acts here, which they place in another world. A man is born on earth to grow up and decay in his time, and no destiny is seen in the same way in his childhood, youth, or old age. Application to diligence and action for the attainment of an object are known by the term effort by the wise, whereby all things are accomplished. Going from one place to another, holding a thing in the hand and the movement of limbs are all the acts of effort and not destiny. There is another kind of propensity, which is towards acts productive of evil. This sort of action is listened to, the attempt of a madman which yields no good. Men of acute understandings raise themselves to elevation by their association with the virtuous, study of good works, and active employment in duties tending to their own good. The boundless joy arising from equanimity is said to constitute one's supreme good. This blessing also results from a man's diligent application to the scriptures. Understanding leads to the knowledge of the scriptures, and the scriptures tend towards our right understanding of things. Just so does the lotus serve to beautify a lake, and the lake lends its grace to the lotus. It is also by virtue of one's deep study and good company in youth that a man later attains his desirable objects. It was by means of actions that Vishnu conquered the demons and established the order of the world. It was by this that he created the worlds, none of which could be done by the work of faith. Now, O Lord of Raghu's race, employ your efforts to the exertion of your manly activities in such a way that you may live unafraid of being bitten by the snake-like people in this tree of the world. Crush the malice of your enemies. Well, in verse 31, it says, Vishnu conquered the demons and established the order of the world by means of action. And then it says, it was by this that he created the world. Created the world. This tells us that Vishnu, as mentioned here, is literally Krishna. Krishna in this universe. We attribute Vishnu to be Krishna acting in this universe to uphold the universe that he actually created. We give the role of creator to Brahma, but who created Brahma? Okay, that's enough for today. Thank you all for joining.